Hey folks, Matthew Fab here with Western Washington Weather. It is September 10th, and today we're going to take a look at a La Nina update. Also, the title of this video shows ENSO update. ENSO is the El Nino Southern Oscillation, the formal name for the El Nino and La Nina pattern association there. So starting here with what these are. So El Nino here, you can see on the right, basically shows when you have this extended Pacific jet stream and storm track a little bit pointed further to the south over parts of California and even down toward parts of Mexico as well. This brings generally wetter conditions to California, and here in the Pacific Northwest we usually are a little bit drier and more on the warmer side. You can see that polar jet stream's a little bit further north there as well. But in La Nina, you can see that polar jet stream cuts down across parts of the United States. The southern U.S. is much drier, and then that variable Pacific jet stream usually has that storm train generating storms going right toward the Pacific Northwest, usually keeping us wetter and cooler, even increasing our chance of lowland snow sometimes with this high pressure offshore that can bring these polar lobes down over parts of British Columbia. That can increase our lowland snow chances with La Nina. And then neutral conditions for the Pacific Northwest generally are kind of between El Nino and La Nina, but hedging a little bit more toward the La Nina side of things, and we will take a look at why knowing neutral conditions is important here in just a moment. So here, as you can see on this King 5 News article from August, there's a La Nina watch issued. This has been in the news in Seattle media, and it's something that is not always explained all that well in terms of what it actually means. So taking a look here at a summary from the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center, the ENSO alert system status right now is a La Nina watch, and this is because sea surface temperatures are near to below average across most of the Pacific Ocean, and neutral conditions are likely through summer 2025, but then a brief period of La Nina conditions is favored in the fall and early winter of 2025 to 2026 before reverting to neutral. And because of that brief period of La Nina, that's why that La Nina watch is in effect. So taking a look at sea surface temperatures, which is what determines El Nino and La Nina, these are the regions you can see in this map here between the coast of South America and the coast of Indonesia and Southeast Asia. That is where we measure the sea surface temperatures that influence El Nino and La Nina. Specifically, this area highlighted right here by you see my cursor outlining it there, the Nino 3.4 region, and you can see it right here highlighted at negative 0.3 degrees Celsius. To get La Nina criteria, you need to be at least negative 0.5 degrees Celsius to reach an official La Nina, and that is what we are watching here, and that's why that La Nina watch has been issued. Now, taking a look at these probabilities, you can see again, you have the neutral right here, the gray bars, and that is showing our current conditions in August and September here with that very high chance of neutral. But then you can see as we go into the winter that our highest chance becomes La Nina by the time we get to November and December. But then as we go out of the winter and back into the late winter, early spring, we have a much, much higher chance of neutral yet again. So this brief La Nina is why we have that La Nina watch in effect right now. And then taking a look at this is like an ensemble forecast like we sometimes look at in my normal forecast videos, but this is basically showing a bunch of different forecast model predictions of the sea surface temperatures, and you can see how all of these predictions show going into the winter here, we have this brief La Nina where the sea surface temperatures drop below that negative 0.5 degree Celsius anomaly, which is that criteria for La Nina. And then you can see as we go back into late winter and early spring, we start to increase back into that neutral territory yet again. So a very brief La Nina, not like some of the strong La Ninas we've seen over the winters from 2020 to about 2022. If you remember some of those being in the news, we had a triple dip La Nina where we had 3 La Ninas in a row, and they were pretty strong at times. This will be very weak, actually. So it's just interesting to see these forecasts kind of come together and see how there is still a little bit of spread too in terms of what happens. And if we scroll down here, you can see another forecast. This is the National Weather Service's own CFS forecast here, and it shows a little bit of a stronger La Nina there, about negative 0.8 degrees Celsius. Still not a moderate or strong La Nina, but more than what those previous forecasts we were looking at shows. So you can see that there is, even a few months out here, a bit of a disagreement in terms of how much of a La Nina we actually get. And we can actually look at this on the forecast model. So this is the European model, looking at those sea surface temperatures. This is September 2025. You see the below average right here. But as we go into October, you can see then October to November, those sea surface temperatures decrease even more, and you're getting that La Nina there. It continues into December. Then going into January, you can see how it starts to weaken. By February and March, it's gone. So again, kind of confirming that brief La Nina that we've been seeing in those forecasts we just looked at from the Climate Prediction Center. Taking a look at the CANSIPS model, this is a Canadian forecast. You can see September showing that La Nina building, same thing in October to November there. This is likely a little bit strong on this forecast. We're likely not going to have -3 to 3.5 degrees Celsius La Nina there. That's a strong La Nina. But you can see the overall trend has that La Nina strengthening for early winter, late fall there, and then weakening and disappearing as we get to March there. So then you can see this neutral and La Nina dance playing out a little bit in these seasonal temperature outlooks. These are issued August 21st, so they're relatively recent here, only about 20 days old at the time I make this video. So they will be updated soon, but these don't change all that much between the seasons. So you can see right here for the September, October, November outlook, above average temperatures here in the Pacific Northwest. Now as we go to October, November, December, you can see we start to cool down a little bit, and it, relatively speaking, and our temperature chances get to about more equal in terms of it being about a 50% chance of above or below normal. Going into November, December, January timeframe, same thing continues there. As we get into January and February, you get the kind of delayed effects of that La Nina with the potential for some below average temperatures going into the beginning of 2026. You can see that sort of continues going into February there, and then taking a look at precipitation forecasts, you see a bit of the similar trend in terms of that La Nina influencing that above average precipitation starting for this fall, continuing into the winter there. You see that above average precipitation going into November, really correlated with that La Nina. Same thing continues into December, January timeframe there across most of the northern United States, west of the Missouri River there and all that. And you can see even going into early 2026, you get that above average precipitation, but it moves a little bit to the east as that La Nina kind of weakens. And then even going into January, February, March, you can see that above average precipitation signal continues, but not the same as when you'd have a classic La Nina that's like on the stronger side, because of course we're not going to have that. And by this time, the La Nina itself will be weakening, thus giving us more near normal precipitation chances across the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, that's basically a quick summary of what's going on with the La Nina situation. I'll try to do another update on this as we go more into the fall and winter. But in the meantime, you can subscribe here to Western Washington Weather. You can follow the social channels here, my Facebook group, my Twitter and Blue Sky accounts. And here on the channel, you can join as a channel member, or you can monetarily support the channel also by donating with a super comment, which is, if you feel so inclined, it's a great way to support the channel and elevate the content that I produce here. So go and check that out, as well as we also have a Western Washington Weather merch store, which is linked in the description below. So you can check that out as well, along with my social media channels. And stay tuned for more daily forecast briefings, and of course for more El Nino, La Nina, and Pacific Northwest drought type updates. And I will talk to you all later.